So it's a great privilege to me to introduce. Our cultural workers are so important. Without our cultural workers, we wouldn't have anything to look at or read or listen to. So we always want to remember them, and many of them are very importantly active, both in shaping our policy and our planning, and also in sending that out everywhere. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Luke Nephew from the Peace Poets.
Thank you so much. Good to be together. You're going to hear my voice a little bit, so first I want to hear our voice. Hello. Yeah. Can I hear you say, decolonize the water? Decolonize the water. Now let's say decolonize the land. Decolonize the land. We're changing up this system. We're changing up this system. We're changing up the plan. We're changing up the plan. Let's see if we can rock that all together as a real quick chant to get started. Say, on the count of three, we'll start with decolonize the water. 1, 2, 3. Decolonize the water. The land. Colonize the land. We're changing up. We're changing up this system. We're changing up the plan. One more time. Decolonize the water. Decolonize the land. We changing up this system. We changing up the plan. Make some noise for yourselves. There we go. So it's a pleasure to be able to open up with a poem. This is my mother's favorite story. When I was 5 years old, my uncle asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I took a second, thought about it, and said, I want to be a mommy. And just like that, he laughed at me. He didn't think I understood what he was asking me, but I did. Because even while other kids wanted to be ballers and doctors, I never saw any of those guys pick me up from school or make me pop roasted pasta. Meanwhile, my mother was for me what Haile Selassie is to Rastas, made more change in my life than everybody and Obama. She was my Alleluia and Hosanna, so this is from my mama. You probably didn't notice you were teaching me to protest, but you were. You gave me the fearlessness that's followed me from Palestine to Albany, with fistfuls of humility to treat this life with fragility. The freedom song that's filling me is the lullaby you used to sing to me that taught me no one should have to live through nightmares. And that lesson has become the root of my profession. So tonight I'm celebrating all the women who taught us to fight for human rights, articulating Article 1 by welcoming us into this life. You see, my mother is the personification of what should be happening inside the United Nations. She actually loves everyone with equal dignity and patience, which is why I'm so passionate about Article 2, freedom from discrimination. You see, she had love like the sun had light, so I had Article 25's food and a place to sleep at night. Plus, I was always that kid breaking up fights, because her compassion taught me freedom from persecution. She is why I don't believe in execution. And her encouragement for the way that I write was just the way she chose to cite Article 27 that says art and culture is a human right. Thank you. Because now my job is bringing poetry to war zones, from Haiti to Juarez to Beirut to Brooklyn, where our people are overflowing in prisons full of hurt. My mother just went back to school to study social work, exercising her right to education. She is my universal declaration. And I only studied politics and economics because they didn't have a degree in motherhood. But they should. And there should be required courses for everybody in the armed forces that teach no mother's child should be tortured, so close those secret prisons down. And no mother's child should go hungry, so we want international debt relief now. We all got to keep it a lot more, moms. If our government's dropping bombs, get out in these streets like any mama would. If you threaten her child's peace, I still want to be a mommy, so you can tell the government not to draft me, because I got kids who are both American and Iraqi. And you best believe that a mother loves her child no matter where he's born. That's why I'm in these streets demanding immigration reform, telling Congress and Obama, we want legalization now. This is the only way I know how to say thank you to my mother. I am the child that you fostered like care in the form of wisdom shared, and just by being there, I'd be rich if I had a dime for every time you told me to cut my hair. But in savings, I am poor. 'Cause I always send my money back to Ecuador so there could be just a little more food on the plates where hunger often waits. You taught me never hesitate to give, so this is how I live. If my income can become bread, it will. And still, when it comes to love, I can never fill your shoes. But every step I take will be to prove you taught me well. Now, I know it's hard when I go away sometimes. I know you miss your baby and you worry about my safety. But remember, I only do what I do because when I grow up, I want to be like you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so if I could ask, I just want to hear the people's voice one more time. I was told it was cool to just open up this space and change it with art. And that for me is so precious, right? That we take the time as we're organizing to transform spaces with our art. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I was asked to do 2 poems, but I want to have people sing. And so maybe let's get the people's voice singing a little bit. I think that would be really powerful. First, we're going to say the lyrics to this song. So just in case everybody wasn't out there yesterday, this song was filled up the financial district. The song was bouncing off walls all over around down there on Wall Street. And these are the lyrics. I'm going to ask you to say the lyrics first. We say, the people going to rise with the water. The people going to rise with the water. We're going to calm this crisis down. We're going to calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter. Singing Shut Down Wall Street Now. Singing Shut Down Wall Street Now. I'm going to ask y'all to sing that with me. It goes like this. The people going to rise with the water. We're going to calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter singing Shut Down Wall Street Now. All together. The people gonna rise with the water. We gonna calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter singing Shut Down Wall Street Now. Let's do it 2 more times. The people gonna rise with the water. We're gonna calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter singing Shut Down Wall Street Now. One more time. The people gonna rise with the water. We gonna calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter singing Shut Down Wall Street Now. Give a round of applause. Thank y'all for singing. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Let's have another hand for Luke, nephew. Peace Poets, just back from a triumphal tour. So that was a great start to the next round of speakers. And the first, we're going to start listening to talks about oil, gas, fracking. That is the part of this section. And then we're going to head on over to coal. And so we're going to start actually with somebody from New York. From Albany Common Council, and her name is Dorothy Appleyers. Please come on up.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So my name is Dorothy Appleyers, and I am a newly elected Common Council member in the city of Albany. And I just want to start by thanking the organizers for this great summit. I also want to thank Wes and Catskill Mountain Keepers for the invitation to be here with you today. I felt that it was very important that I take the train down this morning to talk about what's going on in the city of Albany. Before I talk about what's going on in the city of Albany, I do want to acknowledge and have a moment of silence for 47 individuals who were killed in Quebec last July as a result of derailment of an oil train. So if we can just have a brief moment of silence to pay respect to those who lost their lives as a result of an oil train derailing, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So what ties me to the 47 individuals that lost their lives in Quebec is the fact that I live in a city and represent a city that is dealing with oil train transport and operations at the moment. And in fact, this city, the city of Albany, has become a major hub for oil transport and operations. So of the 75% of back-end oil traveling by rail heading to the East Coast, Albany gets 20 to 25% of the back-end's rail exports. At least twice per day, trains with up to 120 tank cars carrying roughly 85,000 barrels of oil roll through the city of Albany, the heart of the city of Albany. So I am here today to talk about how this issue is impacting us as a city, impacting the quality of our air that we breathe, impacting wildlife, the Hudson River, as well as the residents who live in close proximity to these trains, as we refer to occasionally as bomb trains. So this is a multi-layered issue, but I'm going to focus on one aspect of this issue. And in particular, I'm going to focus on this fight that we are experiencing with global companies, which is a Fortune 500 company. And they are responsible for a lot of oil transport and operations happening in the city of Albany. Currently, global companies has put forth an application to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation requesting to heat petroleum products, including crude oil, near the Port of Albany. Again, they are requesting to heat crude oil in the Port of Albany or near the Port of Albany. So what's wrong with this picture? What are the facts? So essentially what my colleagues and I have recognized is that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation fell asleep at the wheel. Essentially what they did was rendered a negative declaration for this application. And what this negative declaration means is that there will be no environmental impacts, allegedly, as a result of proposing to heat crude oil. And in addition, this negative declaration that was rendered says that global companies, LLC, will mitigate all identified impacts. Very broad language, and many of us in the city of Albany are not drinking this Kool-Aid. So let me get down to some more facts. Currently, no environmental impact study has been conducted. So as a result of the negative declaration that DEC rendered, global companies has not been required to conduct an environmental impact study. In the city of Albany, if you want to open up a Dollar Tree, you have to conduct an environmental impact study. But you have a company that's willing or interested in heating crude oil, and they were not required to conduct an environmental impact study. So it makes you think. So despite the fact that global's potential, they have the potential to emit 147 tons of volatile organic compounds per year, they failed to include the city of Albany and residents in any conversations about heating crude oil. And there's very broad language in their application about what they're planning to heat, what type of petroleum products. So despite all of these things, again, DEC rendered a negative declaration. I just want to highlight some very broad language that was submitted by global companies. Per the application, emissions from the boilers are far below the major source thresholds for all key combustion-related pollutants. Very vague, ambiguous language. And again, DEC, behind the wheel, said we're going to give you the green light. No environmental justice assessment was required, despite the fact that the proposed project is situated adjacent to Ezra Prentice Homes, which is a community that has been identified as an environmental justice area. So let me just break down some demographics about this community. 80% Black and Hispanic, 30% are living below the federal poverty line. And this community, like many urban communities, are already dealing with stress, disproportionate health burdens from asthma to cancer, as others talked about this morning. And this community lives in close proximity to 787, which is a major highway. They are also living in close proximity to waste plants, recycling facilities, and incinerators. And so given all of this context, you have global companies wanting to come in and heat crude oil to add to the burden that this community is already facing. How inconsiderate and how unacceptable. And so as a community, we have said, shame on you, DEC, for allowing this to perpetuate, again, the injustice on this environmental justice area. So in fact, DEC has not complied with their own CP29 policy, which was enacted to protect environmental justice communities. That's a little bit about the issue, but I want to talk about what the community is doing in Albany. So a coalition comprised of citizens, environmental groups, community groups, and elected leaders have stepped up to hold DEC and Global accountable for their lawless and reckless actions. In the past 9 months, this coalition has been responsible for press conferences, community meetings, rallies, letters, legislation at the city, county, and state level, litigation against DEC, local, national, and national media attention. We have residents who at one point felt that they did not have a voice being interviewed by the Times. We have pressured DEC to conduct air community screening studies, as well as require a public participation process to engage the city, engage the community in the proposed application. Currently, the permit has not been granted, and so we do have some time. However, as a community, we are demanding a few things. One, that DEC require global companies to conduct a full environmental impact study, conduct an environmental justice assessment, and engage the communities that will be disproportionately impacted by these operations. In closing, I just want to point out the fact that there is only so much that, as a community, we can do. We need the federal government, as well as the UN, to weigh in on this issue and to advocate on our behalf. The community has done their work. We must stop pimping and selling out our communities for corporate sponsorship. And so I encourage you all to stay committed to the process, as we all will continue to do in Albany. We will continue to fight and advocate for our communities to ensure that companies like Global do not get away with pimping out and selling out our communities for funding. So thank you so much for your time. And I just want to make one more point. I know that there are delegates meeting across the way. But I must say that I am thankful to be in this room with you all. I was always taught that you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. And in this room, I have heard from and see people who are committed to a cause, who will fight for what is right and fight for justice. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. So the next speaker we have is actually going to be talking about coal in their community, and they're one of the communities that have a very interesting people-led solution. So I'm going to invite up Jihan Gearon from the Navajo Nation, Black Mesa Coalition. Thanks.
I'm going to try to stick to 7 minutes. Well, I'm going to put my timer on here. Sorry, guys. Okay, great. Okay. Yate, good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Pretty good? Okay, good. Shea Jihan Gearon Yenishya. Toraj eatni nishle don na kaislejen bashish chin. Lashche dashache don na kaislejen dashanele. Tehatoi dent nasha ado ti shijat dent nasha easy. So I just introduced myself to you in Navajo and included my clans in there for all you Navajos watching. As I was introduced, I work for an organization called Black Mesa Water Coalition. Is that better? Okay. I work for an organization called the Black Mesa Water Coalition. Our work is focused on a region on the Navajo Nation called Black Mesa. But I'm going to talk a little bit first about kind of what it's like on the Navajo Reservation, what it's like in those communities that are there. So the Navajo Nation is bigger than the state of West Virginia, and it's in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah in the southwestern United States. On our reservation now, there's almost 70% unemployment, and it's always between 46% and 54% unemployment. That's just normal, but it's much higher nowadays. And we also have a long history of all kinds of fossil fuel development and resource development. We work on coal, but there's also a history of uranium mining. There's a big fracking boom going on right now for natural gas, and there's also oil and gas development on the Utah side. And besides that, the first things that were given away was timber in one region of our reservation called the Ushigua Mountains. That's actually where I'm from, or the region where I'm from, as well as water, obviously. And there's about 200,000 Navajos that live on the reservation, 200,000 that live off in big border towns and big cities in the southwest. It's very common for people to live now and grow up without electricity or running water. 75% of all the unelectrified homes in the United States are on our reservation. And where we work in Black Mesa is home to 2 coal mines. The Black Mesa mine and the Kienta mine. The Kienta mine provides coal for the Navajo generating station located on our reservation in Page, Arizona. It's the largest coal-fired power plant in the western United States. And the reason that it was built is to push water from northern Arizona to central and southern Arizona. So that's how Phoenix and Tucson, are able to have their golf courses and swimming pools and all that kind of stuff and live their crazy, unsustainable life. We've gotten some jobs off of, as coal miners, off of this development. Some money goes to our central tribal government, but really we don't get anything except the negative impacts. Impacts to water, overuse of water, contamination of water, impacts to the environment, and also impacts to people's health. That's really what we see and are faced with. And we've visited and worked with people who live maybe a quarter mile from the mine off a dirt road, who worked for the mine for 35 years and still don't have electricity or running water, and are also very sick and are not being helped out by Peabody Coal Company. So that's the reality of where we're at now. And the challenge that we're faced with is how do we get out of that situation? This has been going on since the early 70s, so it's been 40 plus years that this is like the only economy that we've seen. And how do we get out of it? Our work is focused on creating a just transition. And that's like, here we are, here's where we know we want to go. We want to see an economy that's based off of cultural values, traditional values, things that our people are already doing. And how do we get from A to B? That's what I think of when I think of what is just transition, and trying to figure that out and trying to navigate the contradictions of that. we kind of think about it in two phases. So first is a project that we're working on called the Black Mesa Solar Project. This is kind of like phase 1. And our idea here is, can we use the reclaimed mining lands and do a large-scale solar project on those mining lands? Those places can't be used for anything else. They've been contaminated. They're quote-unquote being reclaimed, but they're contaminated. So can we put solar on top of those areas, since there's existing infrastructure, since there's existing buyers of electricity like LA Department of Water and Power, since there is 4 major electricity lines that run across our reservation and through that area, can't we tap into that and provide energy to those cities? And can we as Navajo people be owners of that electricity? We don't own the coal mine, we don't own the coal-fired power plant, but what if we were actually owners of a renewable energy project in which we could have money coming back into our communities that can then be used to invest in other forms of economic development that are not providing energy to unsustainable cities? And that would be phase 2. So we're also working on projects. 2 of them is called the Navajo Wool Market Improvement Project and the Food Sovereignty Project. And the idea is that, what is it that our communities are already doing, and how can we support that? Our communities produce wool, our communities grow food, and these are traditional and cultural things that they're keeping going. And how can we strengthen that and build an economy off of that? Yes, to make money, but also just to provide food for our own people, just to provide work for our own people. And take care of ourselves, basically, and figure out not how to bring in more money necessarily, but how to make it so we don't need money so much, and be resilient in that way. What I said earlier around navigating contradictions is, the example is the Black Mesa Solar Project, because I personally believe in that we should be providing energy and continue to provide energy for major unsustainable cities like Phoenix and like Los Angeles. No, I don't think that. Do I believe in large-scale any kind of energy development? No, I don't believe in that. But that's what I'm talking about in navigating contradictions, is trying to figure it out, and not being scared and not being too focused on the long-term vision and idealism that we're not able to take advantage of the opportunities that we have now. And then the last thing that I want to say is just a little bit about, that 7 minutes went by real quick. But the last thing I wanted to say is maybe like, what are our needs now? I think a kind of major needs, and the current moment that we're in and we're probably going to be in for the next year. So our work has gotten a lot of attention and a lot of support, and I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, we want to invest in the solar project, and we want to be a part of that and help to fund that kind of thing, which is great. And we definitely do want that. But I also wanted to pull out that it's also important, along with that, to have an investment in community organizing and building organizations and building community in order so that not all this money is being flooding in and then causing more problems. Like, we need to prepare for that as well. There's so many more organizations besides ours that work on the reservation, like Tuana Jona Ane, Diné Citizens Against Ruining the Environment, Save the Confluence. And they all need support, and they're all doing great work. And I think that the number one most important thing that we can do is to be supporting community organizing, building more organizers, and so that we can actually realize the just transition that we want to see. So my time's up. Thank you.
Alito tamandani ni kay Lambo Ronaguna, nyuka mastita saking garaw ni kaybi. Masti nyukanchi kausay manda nyuka Ecuador manda mani nyuka shuti mang nyuka rukuhona shuti mang kyoka rona shuti me charini Gloria.
Hello everybody, I'm pleased to be here to share my message with you all. My name in my native Yuka, and my name my colonized name. And my name and my colonized name is Gloria. I'm here to share. I came all the way from the Amazon to share my message with you all.
Nyukanchi liaki pasoshkata kay birimangaroni. Nyukanchi liaktai bi nyuka liaktai pasong kay Lambo chi ore kay Amazonia partibi petróleo gona chibron chaupima ganya wagalichishka man amazonietas chimanda que pastasa partima ga mana wagalichishka chanchiga alpaukuy bisakirichu mana ñukanchi monanchichu wañunata mana monanchichu ñukanchi ruku gona onna imanda kawsamushkauna kaygama kawsamushkanchi ñukanchis monanchim ñukanchi tono ungusha wañunagunata mana kasna kay mastigunan wañunagunata chi gasolina asnaygunan wañunagunta monanchichu.
I come here to tell you that we live out there, we're living our lives peacefully, we live in with relation with our territory. We know that by the border between Ecuador and Peru, there is another part of our nation, the Zapra Nation and the Peru border, and they already have oil, and the oil industry has gotten into their territory, and we know that the oil is poisoning our people, it's poisoning our land. We're getting sick, we're dying, we're not healthy anymore, and I'm here to stand for my people. I am here to stand for my women. I am here to stand for all my territory, my indigenous people, because we don't want our lands to be poisoned. We want to keep the oil in the ground.
Chimanda kay trimangaroni socio bosque manda que Rafael Correa charigas que su convenio ta Alemania que ñukancha alpata amoyasha pa tiangao con pa petróleo con sor con ganisha man ñukancha paganata monanchicho ñukancha kausaiwan pa ima diwi gonata charisha pa gobierno ima tonos pagasas pa yamo miyacha ñukancha zeruna mancha mana animal chanchi casa pa wanchisha ñenga ñukancha alpata mitsaunchimi alpaukuy sakirichun petróleo ga chimanda chi socio bosquetas pa Rafael Correa apachun pa pitichun ñukanchi llaqtamanta anchurichun mana monanchichu ñukanchi.
I am here also to announce that the Ecuadorian government, presided by the President Rafael Correa, has signed agreements with Sociobosque and Red, with the German, with the German country, without even asking the people from our territory. They're just dealing with our territory. They're just like lending it off and like getting money from it. And we, the people who live there, we have not been involved in any of the decisions, in any of the processes. We have to be consulted. And when they consult us, they already know that we want to keep the oil in the ground. We don't want to be poisoned. All the deals they're making with Sociobosque and Red, they are dividing the people. We don't want that kind of deals for our territory. We just want to be there and to keep living the ways we have been living for thousands of years. We want to protect, defend, and live in our territory.
Chimanda ñukamonani kay mondoy agruna gunata kay atong chi empresa guna ga paiguna llaktali ima surkusha ga surkunochu mana kay ichile llakto guna rona kausashka gunaybi chi mastita sakinata monani kaybi llambu runa gunaraygu ñukanchi wañuna ga tukungaronchi mana ñukanchi induraygulla ga chi roya runa gunaraygu llambu mangaronchi kulkiyo runa gunas wañungawnami kay asnayguna mana chi kulkilla runa gunaraygulla chan chimanda ñuka kaytari manata monani puchugayta runaga kulkiyu manchi mana papilta makimani hanchichu chasashami kulkillagasha makimuyla shinarikurinchu ñukanchi sachama ashka kulkiyu mani ñuka kaybimi ila llakilla rikurin alpillagasha.
They're trying to convince us with money. They think we eat money. We don't eat money. We have enough money in our territory. We have enough land. We have enough food. We have enough fresh water. That's what is money for us. That's what money represents for us. We don't need people to be dealing with us. We are human beings. We are in our territory. They treat us as we were like animals. Even animals, for us, they have even more rights. You know, the governments don't understand that. They don't understand that we live happy there. We just need to be left alone. We need to live there with our life plans. And we'll be here we'll be defending our territory until the day we die.
Pagracho ña llambo guna kay boyokuna kay ñukarimashka taga Rafael ga dimashti uyashaga paibas runa mang mana sho kauchu chang manoyanga runa shata mishungu yugan paibas Rafael Correa sakichung yugan chalpama que runa guna kausoshkama masonie alpaukuy sakirichung llambo petróleo chumanda kuriguna sukulye sakirichu pagrachu nini.
I am. Thank you very much for listening for what I have to say, for my message. Rafael Correa doesn't listen to me. It seems like he doesn't have a heart. He doesn't. It's like Runa. Runa is a fully living human being. Runa is what a person would represent in the Quechua tradition, and he didn't seem like to be a Runa, because if he were a Runa, he would understand that we want to keep the oil in the ground and we don't want our land to be poisoned. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from someone in the United States. We're going to hear from Kelsey Juliana, and she is going to talk about an initiative called Our Children's Trust.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Juliana. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Eugene, Oregon. However, I could say I'm also from walking across this. I'm also from every state, because for the last couple months I've been with the Great March for Climate Action. We are a collective of everyday average citizens. Our age range is 3 to mid-90s, and we are walking from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. to call to alarm the American and the global community about the climate crisis. And so I'm very proud to represent the Great March for Climate Action, who just took a bus back to Montpelier, Ohio, and are en route to Washington, D.C. We'll get there November 1st, and we plan to have a week of actions preceding that date to further continue the call to alarm to get our money out of fossil fuels. So, I am with the beautiful, wonderful organization called Our Children's Trust. And what I'm doing is suing. I'm not sure if all of you heard from Chutescat Martinez earlier today. He's 14 years old, and he's a brother to me. We are both co-plaintiffs from lawsuits in our own states, him from Colorado, me from Oregon. And we're suing our state government, asking them to put forward these climate carbon reduction plans to limit our CO2 emissions in each state by 6% at least. And these lawsuits were filed when I was a freshman in high school, so 4 years ago. And we were saying 6%. Now we're saying at least 8%. So if that doesn't call to action a lot of people, that's 4 years, and we're already asking of a reduction of at least 2% more. So I'm on this lawsuit asking the governor of Oregon to create this scientifically viable plan to reduce our CO2 emissions, as well as reforest our state. I live in a beautiful state of Oregon. We have a wonderful coastline. We have the desert. We have beautiful, pristine mountain, alpine lakes. We have wonderful rivers. We have old-growth forests. I live in the Willamette Valley. The Cascade Mountain Range is my middle name, Cascadia. I'm extremely connected and tied to my land. And it's extremely frustrating and sad to see the effects of climate change where I live. Our coastlines are being eroded. We're seeing acidification to the extreme on our Oregon coast. In fact, our Oregon coast has such bad predictions, or such bad samplings of acidification in our waters, that they're projecting this is what the rest of the oceans will look like in 50 years from now. And that is a quote that I took away 2 years from now, so I'm sure it's much worse by now. Our coastal communities are really suffering. They're having to rebuild their towns, rebuild major roads, look for different food sources. Throughout the rest of the state, wildfires are a huge problem. We're seeing really intense drought, which is a huge problem for wildfires. And this is extremely horrible for me to realize, because my parents kind of inducted me into this field of work. When I say that, I mean standing up for my earth, standing up for my generation and for future generations. They spent their, adult lifetimes protecting old-growth forests from logging, and now they're being destroyed by wildfires because of our contributions to climate change, to climate disruption. And so now we're fighting the same fight again years later, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop today. We'll be fighting this fight for a long time, I think, which is important for me to realize, because I'm a youth. I will be affected the most. And so with our Children's Trust, being a plaintiff on this lawsuit, I'm going through the courts, asking them to put pressure on the legislator, have them realize that they are a trustee, the government is a trustee, and they hold an obligation to protect these natural, vital ecological resources for current and for future generations. We're using what's called the public trust doctrine. This doctrine, this piece of law, has been around since ancient Roman times, and it says that the government is a trustee to natural resources to hold them in protection for future and current generations. And so we're asking the government to hold the atmosphere under this public trust doctrine so that it will not be exploited and polluted now and in the future, because there should in no way, the future generations should in no way come into a world that is destroyed by their older generations. That is extremely unfair, and that goes against all people's constitutional rights. So yeah, that's why I'm on this lawsuit. And this lawsuit is an incredible thing. It's actually a movement we put together. There are youth in every state in the U.S., as well as international cases, who are calling their governments, holding their governments accountable, asking, demanding that they take action on a crisis that is affecting them on the front lines. So it's an incredible thing. It's a really wonderful movement. And I'm so honored, because I'm not only pursuing action through the legal vector or sector or something cool like that. I'm not only pursuing this legally, I'm also pursuing this with my body. I am walking the talk. That's why I'm on this march. That's why I'm delaying my first term of freshman year of college to be on this walk, because I'm saying, hey, I am willing to sacrifice my priorities, my future, as a lot of people think college is something that should be required. I'm willing to sacrifice and put those off, because this is the most important thing. This should be addressed yesterday. And so I'm walking from, I started in Nebraska after I graduated high school. We get to DC November 1st. We're walking now an average of 20 miles a day because we got to pick up the pace a little bit to get there. We're in Ohio. And yeah, so it's an incredible thing. And like I said, this walk, we just took a bus to join the People's Climate March, which happened on Sunday. We were with 400,000 people and joined by 2,808 solidarity actions and marches in 166 countries with 100+ world leaders standing by our side. I think a round of applause is necessary for that. And why those people gathered together, I'll just say this really quick in closing. Why those people gathered together and why I'm on this march is because, like I said before, we're seeing the impacts not only in our ecology, but in our societies, within the people. Walking through Southeast Chicago was one of the biggest examples that we saw of that. Marching through the biggest oil refinery in the U.S., feeling the pollution in our lungs as we walk 18+ miles on the road, and nowhere, you look behind you, you look in front of you, you look to your side, it's still going. Chain link fences, guards, pollution. It is in their neighborhood. Children's pools, playgrounds are across the street. How is that just? How is that sustainable? It's not. And so I just want to put a little word out. Southeast Chicago, we are with you. We walked through your neighborhood. We inhaled the pet coke dust that is floating into your backyard barbecues, into your children's backyards, and we are with you. We're sorry, and we are doing all that we can. Age 3 to 77, lawyers, high school students, ministers, we're in this all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelsey. Okay. So now we would like to call on Katherine Eglund, who is here from Gulfport, Mississippi. She is a chair of the NAACP, and that has really stepped up its work on climate change, I'm very happy to see, and environmental justice. So we're going to hear about a number of struggles this important fighter is involved in. Thank you.
Thank you. This past Sunday was one of the most deeply impactful and incredible moments of my lifetime, and will be one of the most memorable throughout our history. Growing up in the deep south of Mississippi, I am very accustomed to marching for causes which demanded freedom and justice. I reminisced about my first marches as a young child, much like some on Sunday. But marches in my youthful years were about just basic rights, such as the right to vote, the right to sit wherever I wished on the bus, to drink from the water fountain, the one with the cold water, which was labeled whites only. Just to drink to quench my thirst on a hot summer's day. I marched growing up to use the front entrance and be seated and served at a restaurant when I was hungry, or the right to use a textbook which hadn't been handed down and dirtied by 15 to 20 people who used it before me. I can tell you firsthand that separate was inherently not equal. And so our community banded together. We demanded, we marched, we stood together, and we won all those basic civil rights. And we cautiously celebrate those rights, but continue to guard them. However, we weren't immediately aware in the 60s and early 70s of the fact that our most basic, fundamental civil rights was being denied to us. And that, my friends, was the right to breathe clean air and drink safe water. I was born in a little town called Hattiesburg. My hometown city's biggest employee was a chemical plant aptly called Hercules. The plant was given the name Hercules to emphasize the potency of an explosive black powder it produced. There were days when the stench of pollution coming from that plant was absolutely unbearable. We lived about 10 miles from the plant. 3 of my siblings suffered with asthma. I suffered frequent headaches and nosebleeds. At the time, we never made a connection with illness and the exposure to chemical plant pollutants. I moved to Gulfport in the mid-70s, and after I moved, the citizens of Hattiesburg realized that although Hercules paid a living wage, its production of over 250 chemicals was killing people. And so the Hattiesburg community joined together, this time, unlike the 60s. They protested it as one united community, and the plant was eventually closed in 2009. Since living in Gulfport most of my adult life, I find myself still living in the shadows of pollution. For the past 35 years, I've lived less than 4 miles from a very old coal-fired plant, which fortunately, thanks to people like all of you, will stop burning coal as of April 2015. I had always had a healthy appreciation for our environment and a belief that climate change would someday impact our lives. On August 29, 2005, my belief intersected with the reality of climate change when Hurricane Katrina whisked ashore from the Gulf of Mexico about a quarter mile from my home, devastating everything in its path. My home was practically destroyed. Many were left homeless. The greatest personal heartbreak and loss of Katrina was the drowning death of 2 of our dearest family friends due to the rapidly rising floodwaters into their home. This storm was a life-changing wake-up call which underscored the urgency of climate change. I witnessed firsthand the inequities of climate change through the lens of Katrina. I saw the desperation in the faces of poor minority residents who did not have the financial resources to evacuate. Many did not have the means to adequately stock up on much-needed food and water until relief arrived. And sadly, when relief did finally come, the poor minority neighbors were overlooked. Many did not have the gas or type transportation to get to the distribution centers. Those who needed the relief lines most were the least able to access them. No money, no access. Witnessing the disparity of climate change was just as unsettling as the separate but equal Jim Crow laws. Climate disasters hurt all of us, but some more than others. This is why we must address the discriminatory nature of pollution exposure and the disproportionate abilities to mitigate climate change. Corporate greed is the Jim Crow of climate change. And Kelsey, since some of our elected officials have decided to politicize climate change, it may be necessary for us to demand a constitutional amendment to protect our right to clean water and safe drinking, clean air and safe water. In closing, I want to say that on Sunday, I witnessed hope. I witnessed the promise of climate justice. I witnessed a worldwide diverse amalgamation of brothers and sisters united in the common cause to save our planet. On Sunday, I witnessed the reality of Dr. King's dream, and I wondered, what would he say if he could have taken part in our march? And then I smiled and I thought, maybe he would say, fossil-free at last, fossil-free at last. Thank God Almighty, one day we're going to be fossil-free at last.
So we were hoping to have from Mexico, Venancia Cruz Jimenez from the indigenous movement at Santiago de Anaya, but she was denied a visa. And now we're going to have, speaking in her stead is Jorge Tadeo Vargas. He's going to read her statement.
Buenas tardes. Venancia pide disculpas por no poder estar aquí. ¿Alguien iba a traducir? Sí. Okay.
Venancia says she's sorry she couldn't be here.
Pero su permiso fue negado de último momento y bueno.
Her visa was denied at the last moment.
Ella me ha pedido y me ha dado el honor de que lea una declaración del movimiento indígena Santiago de Anaya para ustedes.
So I have the honor to read a declaration to you from the indigenous movement of Santiago de Anaya.
Bueno, el Valle del Valle del Mezquital en el estado de Hidalgo en México es una de las regiones más contaminadas del mundo.
So, ¿el Valle qué?
Del Mezquital.
Okay, a place called Valle de Mezquital in the state of Hidalgo in Mexico is one of the most polluted places.
En un territorio del tamaño de Manhattan existen 8 cementeras.
So in what territory the size of Manhattan, there are 8 cement factories.
Canales de aguas residuales que vienen de la Ciudad de México sin tratamiento.
Open untreated sewers, bringing sewage from the state of Mexico.
Y la refinería de petróleo más grande del país.
And the biggest oil refinery in the country.
Eso es el Valle de Mezquital.
That's the Valley of Mezquital.
Además de su gente, el pueblo ñañú, que es uno de los pueblos indígenas más guerreros y más luchadores en el país.
But the town, the place, the village where Venancia lives is one of the most militant indigenous places in the country.
Esta ya es la declaración de Venancia.
So this is her declaration that I will read.
Desde el municipio indígena de Santiago de Anaya, en México,
From the indigenous municipality of Santiago de Anaya in Mexico,
queremos expresar los daños que las corporaciones hacen a las comunidades originarias.
we want to talk about the harm that the corporations is doing to our communities.
Las corporaciones están matando nuestra tierra,
They are killing our land.
están matando nuestra forma de vida,
They are killing our way of life.
nos están llevando al borde de la extinción.
And they are taking us to the edge of extinction.
Se están apropiando de nuestro territorio
They are appropriating our territory.
y su modelo de desarrollo solo trae destrucción,
And their development model only brings destruction
despojo,
and the waste,
persecución y muerte.
persecution, and death.
Luego de años de lucha, ninguna autoridad ha puesto atención a nuestras quejas y demandas de justicia.
After many years of struggle, no public authority pays any attention to our demands.
Para ellos no existimos.
We do not exist for them,
Nuestra voz no encuentra eco en ellos.
and our voice is not echoed in them.
La lucha de nuestro pueblo es en contra de la industria contaminante que ha matado nuestra naturaleza,
Our people's struggle, which is against contaminating industry that is destroying nature.
pues las corporaciones solo piensan en su beneficio económico
But the corporations only think about their own economic benefit
y no en el daño que causan.
and not in the harm that they are causing.
Para ellas no existimos.
We do not exist for them.
Los indígenas del Valle del Mezquital en el estado de Hidalgo
The indigenous people of the Valley of Mezquital in the state of Hidalgo in Mexico
agradecemos la oportunidad de ser escuchados,
are thankful to you for the opportunity to be heard.
porque con esto ya no nos sentimos ni solos ni desprotegidos.
Because of this, we do not feel alone or unprotected.
De antemano agradecemos el nombre de toda la comunidad ñañú este espacio.
And we thank you in advance in the name of all of our community.
Desde este trozo de México decimos que no se puede hablar de soluciones a la crisis climática desde allá. Tenemos que hablar aquí.
And from this little patch of land in Mexico, we say that you cannot talk about climate solutions from over there. We talk about it from here.
Nuestro territorio es nuestra identidad,
Our territory is our identity.
es nuestra cultura,
It is our culture.
es nuestra forma de vida.
It is our way of life.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Quiero decirles que el texto eran como 5 páginas, pero por el tiempo hice un recorte para.
I want to say that she sent like a 5-page text, but we cut it down because we do have a time limitation here. Thank you. Now we're going to have a few questions from the audience, and then the judges are going to give us some analysis and their recommendations and so on. I know there's a gentleman here from Sonora, Mexico, from the Yaqui Nation who wants to say a few words. And so I'm going to pass the mic to him first.
Bueno, gracias por la apertura de nueva cuenta. Yo soy indio de la tribu Yaqui del estado de Sonora.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. I'm from the indigenous tribe Yaqui from Sonora, Mexico.
Hemos recorrido bastantes kilómetros para llegar hasta acá, para dar a conocer lo que vivimos allá en nuestro estado con el gobierno del estado de Sonora.
We've come a really long way to share a story with you about what's been happening with the Sonoran government.
He estado escuchando a algunos compañeros de aquí, de otras naciones indígenas, que hablan sobre el despojo de tierras, de agua, y básicamente es lo mismo que estamos viviendo en nuestro estado de Sonora.
I've been here hearing stories from a lot of different indigenous communities about the expropriation of lands and of waters, and our story is very similar.
Para comenzar, somos un pueblo que se encuentra al norte de México, en pleno desierto de Sonora. Se encuentra el río Yaqui.
To begin, we're a community that's in the north of Sonora, next to the Yaqui River.
Su cauce nos da nombre y territorio desde hace aproximadamente más de 2.500 años que hemos habitado este valle. Somos uno de los pocos pueblos que nunca pudieron conquistar militarmente los españoles, pues hemos resistido con base en nuestra ley tradicional a las muchas ofensivas que con exilio, bombas y miseria han pretendido exterminarnos.
This has been our name, the name of our territory for about 2,500 years since we've lived in the valley. We're one of the few towns where we were not able to be conquered militarily by the Spanish because we've been resisting and we have our traditional law. And despite many offenses that against our people, where they've tried to exile us, they've thrown bombs at us, and they've created misery to try and kill us off, we're still here.
Hoy la tribu Yaqui, como también se nos conoce, enfrentamos a una agresión desde hace 4 años. El gobierno local intenta despojarnos el agua de nuestro río. Decidió quitarnos el agua de nuestro río construyendo un acueducto en forma ilegal e injusta que pretende llevar al norte el vital líquido para alimentar negocios especulativos en la industria y en empresas que se enriquecen a costa de nuestra pobreza. Hemos ganado varias demandas judiciales ante este proyecto que de seguir operando podría implicar la desaparición de nuestra civilización y cultura. Sin embargo, hasta ahora ningún ordenamiento judicial se ha cumplido, pues el agua se sigue extrayendo con total impunidad.
Today, the Yaqui tribe, as we're known, is confronting a new aggression since about 4 years ago. The local government has been trying to expropriate the water from our river. They decided to take the water from our river. They constructed an aqueduct illegally and unjustly to be able to transport the water to this vital liquid that we use, this vital liquid to the north, to be able to be used for speculative industrial business. And they basically get rich at the cost of our poverty. Although we've won lawsuits in the court, these projects keep happening, and it implies the disappearance of our civilization and our culture. Nevertheless, even there hasn't been any judicial order that has been complied with, and they keep extracting the water, and there's complete impunity around the issue.
Hoy estamos ante una nueva escalada.
Disculpe, es que ya no tenemos más tiempo. La gente va a hacer sus preguntas.
Ah, bueno.
No podemos tener ponentes que no estaban en el horario. Yo le dije.
Ajá. Disculpe, pero es mucho lo que podemos decirnos de los despojos, la agresión, la represión que ahorita tenemos con el gobierno del Estado de Sonora. Políticas indígenas que no llevan la práctica que deben de llevar, pero nosotros como tribu vamos a seguir adelante. Nos encarcelaron hace 2 semanas a Mario Luna, el cual ahorita está en la cárcel únicamente por defender los derechos indígenas de nuestra lucha. Y hace 6 horas también vuelven a prender a otro elemento de nuestro miembro de la tribu. Gracias.
There's a lot we could talk about in terms of expropriation and aggression on the part of the government, and there's an indigenous policy that has been violated. A member of our tribe was just incarcerated. The director, his name is Mario Luna, and the only reason he was arrested was because he was defending our rights as indigenous people. So thank you for letting me speak.
Muchas gracias. And if you want to know more about that, there are many of us who can translate. If you want to have a more deeper conversation with the compañero, podemos traducir si hay personas que quieren saber más. We do have time for maybe one more question, but I would like the judges to come up and I think I'd like the judges to come up and tell us what they have, their findings for the afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Rex. I come from the Philippines, but I represent the Global Coalition on Migration. And when our friend was telling the story about Katrina, that reminds, it's almost like I can visualize how Yolanda, Tayan, devastated our country a few months back. So the story is similar. But anyway, just to perhaps put some things straight at the start, actually we are not the judges. The judges were the people who spoke before us because they have delivered their verdict on how all the different actors in the area of our lives, governments, multinationals, and in fact even the communities are part of the problems of how global change is occurring. So I think the testimonies pretty much validate essentially what is popularly known. So to us, our role is more perhaps to strengthen the arguments. That's why we are commentators, because we want to cite what are the points that we need to strengthen, because at the end of the day, my observation is, if we are that strong, if we are that inspired by our protests, and I think one of the younger speakers was saying all these actions should have started yesterday. I was looking around the room and there are a lot of people like me with white hair already, which means that indeed action has begun ages ago. And it is very happy, I think, moment for us that we can see that the baton is being passed on to even more energetic younger generation. So I feel so young to see even more young people working on the issues. So, but the question that really struck me while everyone was presenting was, why therefore are we still losing out in terms of how governments are deciding? Why is the UN still deciding on all of these destructive policies? Why are our governments at the local level doing this? Why is US, every citizen is still the biggest polluter in the planet now, 17 tons of carbon dioxide per person in the US every year, compared to China, which is now the second highest, 7 tons of carbon dioxide into the air. So perhaps the youngest speaker pointed it out very clearly this morning, that we have to start the change from ourselves. Because I think another insight that came to me as a matter of comment is what our sister from the indigenous groups said yesterday in the morning, that if you want the incinerators to stop, if you want the oil refineries to stop, we have to starve them, right? We have to stop the demand so that then, which keeps all of these destructive activities alive. So having said that, a lot of our speakers have said about actions that are undertaking, legal action, community action, education, youth outreach. So I think the question to us after these testimonies is, how do we in the US, in your case, and us from outside of the US, connect together more strongly so that we can storm the UN, we can storm our governments, and at the end of the day, deliver the tsunami that will end all these destructive activities on climate change. So these are my comments on the presentations. Thank you.
We heard first the poetry of motherhood, and we sang songs of people rising and calming before we heard you bear witness. And I thank Luke for setting the stage for these powerful stories of atrocities of action, because when we bring art and that calming grace of poetry and music, it sets the stage for the work that we have to do and that all of you are doing. You have testified today as witnesses to oil bomb trains that threaten to derail your community's health and safety, and the most vulnerable and poor among you, with the greatest impacts in communities of people of color. And you've been denied environmental review and public participation when those decisions are being made. You've testified about fracking, mining, coal mines, timber giveaways, and the loss and contamination of water in Navajo territory that mimics what happens to other indigenous peoples across the world. In the Amazon, Gloria and the Quechua people fight to keep the oil in the ground and their rainforests guarded. But the government leaders lack humility and humanity and the ears with which to listen to respond justly to these atrocities. We heard from youth who see the forests burn, the droughts, ocean acidification, who walk across the country and see the biggest fossil fuel development projects that pollute communities across the country, across the world, and they breathe in that air as they walk and fight for justice. We've heard from people who've lost lives, friends, homes in Hurricane Katrina. People have grown up next to chemical plants and coal plants. And people who marched in other social justice, civil rights movements and talk about that very important link between our fundamental rights, our human rights, our constitutional rights, our public trust rights, where we hold our governments accountable to be trustees of the essential ecological resources on which we all depend and which connect all of us. And so we also heard you bear witness to what you're doing. You're taking action in courts. You're engaging in civic processes. You're working with media to get the word out. You're applying public pressure. And you're using green energy, renewable development projects to try to change from fossil fuel-based energy production and sources of money to safe, clean technology to create jobs and support people. And you're doing so much more, but those are some of the things that I heard today, and thank you for your witness.
So I guess we can take a couple questions from the audience, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back for our final session, where we're going to be hearing kind of a little smattering of different sectors, people that we've identified to close out the day, and know that probably 500 or 600 people are gathered in one theater at the New School University to watch that part of the live stream. And we know that people are watching all over the world because we can see the numbers coming in of the numbers of computers that have logged into the live stream, which is a pretty interesting thing to feel. So does anyone have a question or statement?
Buenas tardes a todos y todas.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Vengo del Perú.
I am from Peru.
Soy de la Comisión Política de la Organización de la Cumbre de los Pueblos.
I am from the I'm from the political committee of the Organization of the People's Summit in Peru.
Y si bien la historia siempre la han escrito los vencedores, creo que nosotros debemos empezar a escribir la historia de lo que vamos a vencer.
So they say that history is always written by the conquerors, but I think it's about time we started writing history about what we're about to win.
Vamos a vencer en la defensa de la tierra y de la vida humana. La marcha el domingo así lo demuestra.
We are going to win in the right, in the struggle to save the earth and the rights of human beings and human life. And I think that Sunday's march was an example of that.
Si bien nosotros no tenemos en Latinoamérica Sandys ni Katrinas, tenemos algo peor.
So in Latin America, we haven't been having Sandys and Katrinas, but we have something worse.
Tenemos las corporaciones transnacionales que están destruyendo nuestro territorio y nuestra biodiversidad.
We have the international corporations that are destroying our territories and our biodiversity.
Podría pasarme horas hablando sobre la violación a los derechos a la tierra y de la persona humana en nuestro país. Algunos de ellos ya han sido denunciados por otros compañeros en este escenario.
I could spend hours talking about the persecution of people who are defending our territories, and some of those cases have been denounced here.
Pero solo quiero invitarlos a que el día 8 de diciembre nos acompañen en Lima a la Cumbre de los Pueblos.
I just want to invite you to come to Lima and be part of the People's Summit on December 8th.
A la gran movilización que haremos el 10 de diciembre hacia la COP20.
And on the 10th of December, we will have a big mobilization, a giant mobilization, as we head towards the COP, the UN meeting on the climate.
Porque nosotros decimos en Lima, cambiemos el sistema, no el clima.
Because what we say in Lima is system change, not climate change.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm from the Philippines, Cecil Guidote Alvarez, from the Earth Savers. We've been declared a UNESCO Artist for Peace, and we'd like to thank the organizers for having begun this session with an appreciation of the role of the arts to conscientize, to popularize whatever data we have, scientific, ethical, whatever, because as some of our speakers have said, really to have change, we have to conscientize, we have to build the heart of compassion and sensitivity to the needs of our people, because all of this injustice is seen with the poverty around, and poverty is there because of armed conflict and because of climate change catastrophes. You spoke about disasters, and there is something that is forgotten or more or less marginalized, and this is the mental health of the victims and the refugees, whether of armed conflict or of any form of violence and climate change catastrophes. We've not only seen death, disability, destruction, but we have really witnessed this discombobulation of the mental health of the victims who are suicidal because they've lost everything. And so we have to build the hope, the resilience, and the arts is a very effective tool for participation to draw them out from the pit of despair and give them really a sense of hope. So I wonder whether this power movement, this climate justice gathering can really be a partner. For instance, already you can see the problem of possible, and it's there already, the seed of conflagration with the China Sea. And we're trying to bring in the concept of using, not by force, but by art. As he said earlier, tempering of this strong confrontational operation. So a music, theater, peace arts gathering with artists from contesting areas and those who are concerned may reaffirm what you call solidarity, friendship, and an appreciation of the rule of the law, that it's not aggression, but it is following the law of the sea and an ASEAN code of conduct. Because we cannot afford more armed conflict, which is causing this. And you know that with all the bombings, you have more carbon culprits in the atmosphere. So we hope, I have been engaged in this thing because my husband was involved in all of the legislation from the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act to climate change and biodiversity protection. But as he said, they can create, or he can create all of the laws, but unless the people really are informed, motivated, involved, participating, all the laws are useless. So we hope that you can harness globally a creative army of artist teachers that can actually put into poetry, into music, into soap opera, fleshing out all of these good stories, the plight of indigenous peoples, the need for inclusive growth. Everything can be crystallized much more effectively, easy transmission to the heart and the mind if we work on this issue. So there is a lot of injustice here. We lived in exile, and this was a place of fighting against tyranny and repression. And déjà vu, we are here again, but fighting really for the human right of survival. And it was wonderful in the march that ancient people like us, grandmothers, were beside babies in the trolleys and then all kinds of children on shoulders. I mean, this was the vivid synergy of showing the concern for the survival of our global family. So it is an appeal to open up more, to involve the UNESCO artists and many, many more in the International Theater Institute to be your voice, I mean, your transmission on radio, on TV. I was recording these things because we'll air it on our radio program in the Philippines. Thank you.
So thank you. And I think we're going to take a little break. And like always, everyone should thank their sponsor. So I want to thank, first of all, the United Methodist Women, very progressive and wonderful organization. They own this building. They believed in us right from the start and gave us everything we needed to be able to do this. I also want to thank the New School University, because when we realized that not everybody could fit in here, they gave us another building. So that's why there's a lot of people over there watching on the live stream and listening to panels. And finally, I want to thank my own organization, Climate Justice Alliance, of which all of our groups are members. I work in my community, and Climate Justice Alliance had the vision to try to do something beyond the march, something that we would do on Monday and on Tuesday when it was time to get back to work, so that we can all start growing our analysis, increasing our knowledge, and finding new ways to work together. So we've got one more session in a little while. I think there are people outside making a floral delivery at this moment, and we're going to hear a statement from them afterwards. So just take a little break and have a sandwich, and we'll be back very soon with another all-star cast of incredible speakers. Thank you.